ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Namaskar, my dear friends. In this video I am going to narrate salient features of Mandala-brahmana Upanishad of Shukla Yajurveda. Om. The great Muni says, Yajnavalkya went to Aditya Loka, the sun's world, and saluting him, the Purusha of the sun said, O revered sir, describe to me the Atma Tattva, the Tattva or truth of Atma. To which Narayana, which the Purusha of the sun replied, I shall describe the eightfold yoga together with jnana, the conquering of cold and heat as well as hunger and sleep, the preserving of sweet patience and unruffledness ever, and the restraining of the organs from sensual objects. All these come under or are yama. Devotion to one's guru, love of the true path, enjoyment of objects producing happiness, internal satisfaction, freedom from association, living in a retired place, the controlling of the manas, and the not longing after the fruits of actions, and a state of vairagya, all these constitute niyama. The sitting in any posture pleasant to one and clothed in tatters or bark is prescribed for asana posture. Inspiration, restraint of breath, and expiration, which have respectively 16, 64, and 32 matras, constitute pranayama, restraint of breath. The restraining of the mind from the objects of senses is pratyahara, subjugation of the senses. The contemplation of the oneness of consciousness in all objects is dhyana. The mind having been drawn away from the objects of the senses, the fixing of the chaitanya, consciousness on one alone is dharana. The forgetting of oneself in dhyana is samadhi. He who thus knows the 8 subtle parts of yoga attains salvation. The body has 5 stages, viz. Passion, anger, outbreathing, fear, and sleep. The removal of these can be effected respectively by absence of sankalpa, forgiveness, moderate food, carefulness, and a spiritual sight of tattvas. In order to cross the ocean of samsara, where sleep and fear are the serpents, injury, etc. are the waves, trishna, thirst is the whirlpool, and wife is the mire, one should adhere to the subtle path and overstepping tattva and other gunas should look out for tarka. Tarka is Brahma, which being in the middle of the 2 eyebrows is of the nature of the spiritual effulgence of Satchitananda. The spiritual seeing through the 3 lakshyas or the three kinds of introvision is the means to it. It, Brahman, Susmana, which is from the Mooladhara to the Brahmarandra, has the radiance of the sun. In the center of it is Kundalini, shining like crores of lightning and subtle as the thread in the lotus stalk. Tamas is destroyed there. Through seeing it, all sins are destroyed. When the two ears are closed by the tips of the four fingers, a futkara or booming sound is heard. When the mind is fixed on it, it sees a blue light between the eyes as also in the heart. This is antarlaksya or internal introvision. In the bahirlakshya or external introvision, one sees in order before his nose at a distance of 4, 6, 8, 10 and 12 digits. The space of blue color, then a color resembling shama, indigo black, and then shining as rakta, red wave, and then with the two pita, yellow and orange red colors, then he is a yogi. When one looks at the external space, moving the eyes and sees streaks of light at the corners of his eyes, then his vision can be made steady. When one sees Jyoti's spiritual light above his head, 12 digits in length, then he attains the state of nectar. In the Madhya Lakshya or the middle one sees the variegated colors of the morning, as if the sun, the moon, and the fire had joined together in the Akash, that is, without them. Then he comes to have their nature of light. Through practice, he becomes one with Akash, devoid of all gunas and peculiarities. At first, Akash, with its shining stars, becomes to him Prakash, as dark as Tamas itself, and he becomes one with Prakash, shining with stars and deep as Tamas. Then he becomes one with Mahakas, resplendent as with the fire of the deluge. Then he becomes one with Tattva Akash, lighted with the brightness which is the highest and the best of all. Then he becomes one with Surya Akash, Sun Akash, brightened by a crore of suns. By practicing thus, he becomes one with them. He who knows them becomes thus. Know that yoga is twofold through its division into the Purva earlier and the Uttara later. The earlier is Tarka and the later is Amanska, the mindless. Tarka is divided into Murti with limitation and Amurti without limitation. That is Murti Tarka, which goes to the end of the senses or exist till the senses are conquered. That is Amurti Tarka, which goes beyond the two eyebrows above the senses. Both these should be performed through manas. Antardrashti, internal vision associated with manas, comes to aid tarka. Tejas, spiritual light, appears in the hole between the two eyebrows. This Tarka is the earlier one. The later is Amanska. The great Jyoti's light is above the root of the palate. By seeing it, one gets the siddhis, anima, etc. Sambhavi mudra, Sambhavi mudra occurs when the lakshya, spiritual vision is internal, while the physical eyes are seeing externally without winking. This is the great science which is concealed in all the tantras. When this is known, one does not stay in samsara. Its worship or practice gives salvation. Antarlakshya is of the nature of Jala Jyotis or water Jyotis. It is known by the great rishis and is invisible both to the internal and external senses. Sahasrara, with the thousand-petaled lotus of the pineal gland, Jalajyoti Jalajyotis is the Antarlakshya. Some say the form of Purusha in the cave of Buddhi, beautiful in all its parts, is Antarlakshya. Some again say that the all-quiescent Nilkantha, accompanied by Uma, his wife, and having 5 mouths and latent in the midst of the sphere in the brain, is Antarlakshya, while others say that the Purusha of the dimension of a thumb is Antarlakshya. A few again say Antarlakshya is the one self made supreme through introvision in the state of Jivan Mukta. All the different statements above made pertain to Atma alone. He alone is a Brahmanistha who says that the above Lakshya is the pure Atma. The Jiva, which is the 25th Tattva, having abandoned the 24 Tattvas, becomes a Jivan Mukta through the conviction that the 26th Tattva, which Paramatma is I alone, becoming one with Antarlakshya Brahma in the emancipated state by means of Antarlakshya introvision, Jiva becomes one with the partless sphere of Pramakas. Thus ends the first Brahma, Brahmakash. Brahmana 2. Then Yajnavalkya asked the Purusha in the sphere of the sun, O Lord, Antarlakshya has been described many times, but it has never been understood by me clearly. Pray, describe it to me. He replied, it is the source of the 5 elements, has the luster of many streaks of lightning, and has 4 seats having or rising from that Brahma. In its midst, there arises the manifestation of Tattva. It is very hidden and unmanifested. It can be known only by one who has got into the boat of Jnana. It is the object of both Bahir and Antar, external and internal lakshyas. In its midst is absorbed the whole world. It is the vast partless universe beyond Nada, Bindu and Kala. Above it is the sphere of Agni, is the sphere of the sun. In its midst is the sphere of the nectary moon. In its midst is the sphere of the partless Brahma Tejas, or the spiritual effulgence of Brahma. It has the brightness of Shukla white light, like the ray of lightning. It alone has the characteristics of Sambhavi. In seeing this, there are three kinds of drishti, sight, viz. Ama, the new moon, Partipat, the first day of lunar fortnight, and Purnima, the full moon. The sight of Ama is the one seen with closed eyes. That with half opened eyes is Partipat, while that with fully opened eyes is Purnima. Of these, the practice of Purnima should be resorted to. Its lakshya or aim is the tip of the nose. Then is seen a deep darkness at the root of the palate. By practicing thus, a jyotis, lights of the form of an endless sphere is seen. This alone is Brahma, the Satchitananda. When the mind is absorbed in bliss thus naturally produced, then does Sambhavi take place. See, Sambhavi alone is called Khechri. By practicing it with the mudra, a man obtains firmness of mind. Through it he obtains firmness of Vayu. The following are the signs. First, it is seen like a star, then a reflecting or dazzling diamond, then the sphere of full moon, then the sphere of the brightness of nine gems, then the sphere of the midday sun, then the sphere of the flame of Agni, fire. All these are seen in order. Thus much for the light in Purva or first stage. Then there is the light in the western direction in the Uttara or second stage. Then the lustres of crystal, smoke, bindu, nada, kala, star, firefly, lamp, eye, gold, and nine gems, etc. are seen. This alone is the form of Parnava, having united prana and apana and holding the breath in kumbhaka. One should fix his concentration at the tip of his nose and making Shanmukhi with the fingers of both his hands. One hears the sound of Parnava Om, in which Manas becomes absorbed. Such a man has not even the touch of karma. The karma of Sandhya Vandana or the daily prayers is verily performed at the rising or setting of the sun. As there is no rising or setting but only the ever shining of the sun of Chit, the higher consciousness in the heart of a man who knows thus he has no karma to perform, rising above the conception of day and night through the annihilation of sound and time. He becomes one with Brahma through the all-full jnana and the attaining of the state of Unmani, the state of Manas. Through the state of Unmani, he becomes a Manaska or without Manas. Manas means mind. Not being troubled by any thoughts of the world, then constitutes the dhyana. The abandoning of all karmas constitutes avahana, invocation of God. Being firm in the unshaken spiritual wisdom constitutes asana, posture. Being in the state of Unmani constitutes the padya, offering of water for washing the feet of God. Preserving the state of Amanska when Manas is offered as sacrifice constitutes the Arghya, offering of water as oblation generally. Being in state of eternal brightness and shoreless nectar constitutes Snana, bathing. The contemplation of Atma as present in all constitutes the application to the idol of Sanjal. The remaining in the real state of the Drik spiritual eye is the worshipping with Akshara, non-broken rice. The attaining of Chit, consciousness, is the worshipping with flower. The real state of Agni, fire of Chit, is the Dhupa, burning of incense. The state of the sun of Chitta is the Deepa, light waved before the image. The union of oneself with the nectar of full moon is the Naivedya, offering of food, etc. The immobility in that state of the ego being with all is pardakshana, going round the image. The conception of I am he is namaskara, prostration. The silence then is the stuti, praise. The all contentment or serenity then is the visarjana, giving leave to God or finishing worship. This is the worship of Atma by all Raja Yogins. He who knows this knows all. When the Tripati are thus dispelled, he becomes the Kaivalya Jyotis without bhava, existence, or abhava, non-existence, full and motionless like the ocean without the tides or like the lamp without the wind. He becomes a Brahmavit, knower of Brahma, by cognizing the end of the sleeping state even while in the waking state. Though the same mind is absorbed in Susupti as also in Samadhi, there is much difference between them. In the former case, as the mind is absorbed in Tamash, it does not become the means of salvation, but in Samadhi, as the modifications of Tamas in him are rooted away, the mind raises itself to the nature of the partless. All that is no other than Sakshi Chaitanya, witness consciousness or the higher self into which the absorption of the whole universe takes place, inasmuch as the universe is but a delusion or creation of the mind and is therefore not different from it. Though the universe appears perhaps as outside of the mind, still it is unreal. He who knows Brahma and who is the sole enjoyer of Brahmic bliss, which is eternal and has dawned once for all in him, that man becomes one with Brahma. He in whom Sankalpa perishes has got Mukti in his hand. Therefore, one becomes an emancipated person through the contemplation of Paramatma. Having given up both bhava and abhava, one becomes a Jivan Mukta by living off again and again in all states. Jnana, wisdom, and Gaya, object of wisdom, Dhyana, meditation, and Dheya, object of meditation, Lakshya, the aim, and Alakshya, non-aim, Drishya, the visible, and Adrashya, the non-visible, and Uha, reasoning, and Apoha, negative reasoning. He who knows this knows all. There are five avasthas, states which Jagrat, waking, Swapna, dreaming, Susupti, dreamless, sleeping, the Turiya, fourth, and Turyatita, that beyond the fourth. The Jiva, ego, that is engaged in the waking state becomes attached to the Pravritti, worldly path, and is the participator of Narka, hell, as the fruit of sins. He desires Svarga, heaven, as the fruit of his virtuous actions. This very same person becomes afterwards indifferent to all these, saying, enough of the births tending to actions, the fruits of which tend to bondage till the end of this mundane existence. Then he pursues the Nivarti return path with a view to attain emancipation, and this person then takes refuge in a spiritual instructor in order to cross this mundane existence, giving up passion and others. He does only those he is asked to do. Then, having acquired the four sadhanas, means to salvation, he attains in the middle of the lotus of his heart the reality of Antarlakshya, that is but the Sat of Lord, and begins to recognize or recollect the bliss of Brahma which he had left or enjoyed in his Susupti state. At last he attains this state of discrimination thus: I think I am the non-dual one only. I was in Ajnana or sometime in the waking state and called therefore Vishwa. I became somehow or involuntarily a Tejasa in the dreaming state. Through the reflection in that state of the affinities of the forgotten waking state, and now I am a prajna through the disappearance of those two states. Therefore, I am one only. I appear as more than one through the differences of state and place, and there is nothing of differentiation of class besides me, having expelled even the smack of the difference of conception between I and that. Through the thought I am the pure and the secondless Brahma, and having attained the path of salvation, which is of the nature of Prabrahma, having after having become one with it through the dhyana of the sun's sphere as shining with himself, he becomes fully ripened for getting salvation. Sankalpa and others are the causes of the bondage of the mind, and the mind devoid of these becomes fit for salvation. Possessing such a mind free from all sankalpa, etc., and withdrawing himself from the outer world of sight and others, and so keeping himself out of the odor of the universe, he looks upon all the world as Atma, abandons the conception of I, thinks I am Brahma, and considers all these as Atma. Through these, he becomes one who has done his duty. The yogi is one that has realized Brahma, that is all full beyond Turiya. The people, extol him as Brahma, and becoming the object of the praise of the whole world, he wanders over different countries, placing the Bindu in the Akash of Paramatma and pursuing the path of the partless bliss produced by the pure, secondless, stainless, and innate yoga sleep of Amanska. He becomes an emancipated person. Then the yogi becomes immersed in the ocean of bliss. When compared to it, the bliss of Indra and others is very little. He who gets this bliss is the supreme yogi. Thus ends the second Brahma. Brahma 3. The great sage Yajnavalkya then asked the Purusha in the sphere of the sun, O Lord, though the nature of Amanska has been defined by you, yet I forget it or do not understand it clearly. Therefore, pray, explain it again to me. Accordingly, the Purusha said, this Manaska is great secret. By knowing this, one becomes a person who has done his duty. One should look upon it as Paramatma associated with Sambhavi Mudra, and should know also all those that can be known through a thorough cognition of them. Then seeing Prabrahma in his own Atma as the Lord of all, the immeasurable, the birthless, the auspicious, the supreme Akash, the spotless, the secondless, the only goal of Brahma, Vishnu and Rudra, and the cause of all, and assuring himself that he who plays in the cave of the heart is such a one, he should raise himself above the dualities of existence and non-existence, and knowing the experience of the unmani of his manas, he then attains the state of Prabrahma, which is motionless as a lamp in a windless place. Having reached the ocean of Brahmic bliss by means of the river of Amanska Yoga through the destruction of all his senses. Then he resembles a dry tree, having lost all idea of the universe through the disappearance of growth, sleep, disease, expiration, and inspiration. His body being always steady, he comes to have a supreme quiescence, being devoid of the moments of his manas and becomes absorbed in Paramatma. The destruction of manas takes place after the destruction of the collective senses, like the cow's udder that shrivels up after the milk has been drawn. It is this that is a manaska. By following this, one becomes always pure and becomes one that has done his duty, having been filled with the partless bliss by means of the path of Tarka Yoga through the initiation into the sacred sentences I am Paramatma, that art thou, I am thou alone, thou art I alone, etc. When his manas is immersed in the Akash and he becomes all full, and when he attains the Unmani state, having abandoned all his collective senses, he conquers all sorrows and impurities through the partless bliss, having attained the fruits of Kaivalya, ripened through the collective merits gathered in all his previous lives, and thinking always I am Brahma, becomes one that has done his duty. I am thou alone. There is no difference between thee and me, owing to the fullness of Paramatma. Saying thus, he, the Purusha of the sun, embraced his pupil and made him understand it. Thus ends the third Brahmana 4. Then Yajnavalkya addressed the Purusha in the sphere of the sun. Thus pray explain to me in detail the nature of the fivefold divisions of Akash. He replied, there are five viz Akash, Prakash, Mahakash, Suryakash and Paramakas, that which is of the nature of darkness both in and out is the first Akash, that which has the fire of the deluge both in and out is truly Maha-Akash. That which has the brightness of the sun both in and out is Suryakash. That brightness which is indescribable, all pervading and of the nature of unrivaled bliss is Paramakas. By cognizing these according to this description, one becomes of their nature. He is a yogi who in name, who does not cognize well the 9 chakras, the 6 adharas, the 3 lakshyas and the 5 akas. Thus ends the fourth Brahmana. Brahmana 5. The manas influenced by worldly objects is liable to bondage, and that manas which is not so influenced by these is fit for salvation. Hence all the world becomes an object of chitta, whereas the same chitta, when it is spotless and well ripe in the state of unmani, becomes worthy of laya, absorbs in Brahma. This absorption you should learn from me, who am the all-full. I alone am the cause of absorption of manas. The manas is within the jyotis, spiritual light, which again is latent in the spiritual sound, which attains to the anhata heart sound. That Manas, which is the agent of creation, preservation, and destruction of the three worlds. That same Manas becomes absorbed in that which is the highest seat of Vishnu. Through such an absorption, one gets the pure and secondless state, having owing to the absence of difference. Then, this alone is the highest truth. He who knows this will wander in the world like a lad or an idiot or a demon or a simpleton. By practicing this amanaska, one is ever and contented. His urine and feces become diminished. His food becomes lessened. He becomes strong in the body, and his limbs are free from disease and sleep. Then his breath and eyes being motionless, he realizes Brahma and attains the nature of bliss. That ascetic who is intent on drinking the nectar of Brahma produced by the long practice of this kind of samadhi becomes a Pramhansa ascetic or an Avadhuta naked ascetic. By seeing him, all the world becomes pure, and even an illiterate person who serves him is freed from bondage. He, the ascetic, enables the members of his family for 101 generations to cross the ocean of samsara, and his mother, wife and children, all these are similarly freed. Thus is the Upanishad, thus ends the fifth Brahmana. So the whole Upanishad is completed, and with this video is also completed. Thank you for watching this wonderful video. Namaskar, my dear friend. Thank you.